Well, this is Tom again. This is I'm going to call this a Frankenvise. I wound up getting this thing off eBay. Let me loosen it up so I can spin it around and I'll show you a little better. This is an old milling vise. It's called a quick change, I think, a quick release or something like that. But you see this bracket right here, it goes in these slots. So in order to loosen up something, you only have to loosen just a little bit here, and then this little lever comes out, and then you can pull the vise back. But this was a 3-inch one, apparently used for a bandsaw. It was cut up pretty good along in here, but it was plenty heavy. So all I did here was drill out some bolts. It was kind of a difficult thing marking this cross slide. I drilled some bolt holes in it here, and then I used a big cutter, milling head, and I put it in the drill press, and the lathe, and countersunk it so I could put these bolts in. And what I was trying to do on the thing, it's kind of hard to move it one-handed, but this cross slide that I'd had, inside this cover is kind of hollow. You can see where the bolt's going through here, and what I tried to do was get it into part of the way here. Let me see if I can back this up a little bit. I've got it locked down pretty tight to try to mill with it, but you can see the ways right here. There was really no good place to put a bolt through. They weren't designed for that, because we've got the V in it right there, and so the bolt basically is just barely clearing the V, and it's going through the edge of the slide with the biggest part. And similarly, on this part right here, I wanted to try to set this inside of the vise. I had no idea how big it was going to be, as far down here as I could, and still get it low enough to where I'd be low to mill something below this. So basically what happened is I got one good one in this thick part of the bottom here, one good bolt here, and then one on each side. And I also I just guessed the middle here with a grinder, and I ground a little bit out so it would clear this part, and I milled this back. But anyway, I've got the vise on there, and I do have a degree thing on the other side. It's a little hard to read, but for now all I did was just throw a level on it. Strangely enough, you wouldn't think it, but it is level all the way around, and this is enough to just basically center the vise. What I was trying to do now was level up or even up the surfaces of the vise. Now, one of the things here is down here in the bottom, it's not really square. This is about as close as it's going to get. This had some jaws in it, which I don't have, but and if you'll look at this part right here, you can see there's quite a bit of room in here. You know, this is nowhere near straight across. You can see how my little scale hooks on it right there. And so I stuck a milling cutter here in the flywheel flywheel cutter in the lathe, and I was just trying to machine this thing off so I can get this flat. Then I was going to make a couple jaws and drill them and bolt in there, and then like get them off. But I found out some things here. I mean, this is pretty obviously, you know, I'm 6 or 7 inches away from my cutting surface off of this dovetail here on the, what is this, feed screw. On this, it's just too far away, and I've done some things here. When it's running, I can actually see this thing moving a little bit, even though I can't move it by hand really. But when it gets hit with that fly cutter, it does move. One of the things I found to improve it is I've got a pretty good gap in here. Of course, it's only going to be here whenever it's in the lowest position like this, but I just took a plastic screwdriver and just tapped it in here to kind of make this more solid, and that improved it some. But I think really, in order to do this right, I thought this was going to be plenty strong, but I think I need to make it all out of this 3/8, well, it's not quite 3/8, I don't know whatever a size under 3/8 is, out of this stuff, and I need to run it all the way up to the top here to make this as strong as possible. I may just put one more plate like this out of this heavy stuff right here, put 2 more bolts in it, and then cut me a triangular piece like that and weld that in. Probably this as well, instead of only just barely clearing this edge of this way here on this thing. It should probably be way back here, so I should have made this piece much bigger. Ideally, you know, it would go from here to here, and that'll give me as much rigidity as I could possibly get in it. I don't know. I basically, that means I have to junk this piece, and it took me quite a while to make this, but I didn't realize this vise was going to be this big, really. It's a 3-inch vise, and I was just assuming that it wasn't that big, but it must weigh 7 or 8 pounds. It's pretty heavy. The next part of this is this thing is really banging away. It took me forever to try to mill off this little piece of the vise, a few thousandths at a time. And what I've got here in this fly cutter is a carbide tip bit. These things were, I bought 3 of them in some kind of a little set. One of them was, the smallest one was missing a bit. This one had a carbide cutter in them, and I think I showed on an earlier video when I was machining this plate back here flat. I tried to sharpen this, and I had some success, but now that I'm actually cutting something out here that's a little heavier and I've got all this flex in it, that's not working out. Let me pull that bit out of there and I'll show you something. Anyway, here's the bit. It's pretty chewed up. Looks like it's been ran into some stuff. If I was to use this for a lathe bit, I would say that that angle's way too steep. A lot of relief on the end, but it just really don't look too sharp, and it's, I don't know, I'm not having any luck with it. It's cutting, but it's really slow. So I looked on YouTube and I saw some videos on how to grind a fly cutter bit, so I'm going to try to grind one and try it. I learned something here. Apparently you can't grind carbide. It does a good job of chewing up your grinding wheel, but I was able to start touching it a little with a cutoff tool. Problem was that it had no relief. It had a negative relief, so the back side of the tool was hitting before the cutter side. I managed to get most of it off. I don't know if I've got enough to make any difference, but I'm going to give it a try and see. You know, it's working a lot better. You can see the cut there. Nowhere near the amount of banging that was going on. I've still got some in here, of course, but so I'm going to try, I'm going to give this about 2,000. Cutting. I can see a lot of the metals coming off. Seems to be pretty smooth. It's not bouncing around near as much as it was before. But it seems to be taking off a pretty clean cut all the way across there. So it looks like that was probably a good thing. You see on this side of the cutter what it's doing when it comes over here. And I'm getting quite a bit of banging now. And that's unfortunately as far as my vise will go. So I kind of got to do this on the one side. As you can see there, I'm not all the way across my vise. I have to change the angle. I'm trying to change the angle and see if we can get that out of the part. Well, that works pretty good. I'm going to take off a couple more thousandths here. And when I feed it this way, it's standard milling instead of Klein milling. But it's taking it off pretty good. Only 2 thousandths, but you can see I got a lot of flex in this thing still. Tightened up the gibs and the waves on all the slides as much as I can. Still be able to turn it. That's doing that top corner there where it's cutting. Of course it's fed by hand. It's taking it down pretty good, fairly smooth. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to take out here down the other, where the other side of the cutter starts hitting. Bit more of a cut, but it's even all the way across the face. much of anything other than make a noise. So yeah, when I use standard milling on it, I'm pulling it against the cutting side right now. Just taking off that top corner. I'm doing a pretty fair job. A little bit of a spring cut. Every time it's just taking a little more. I don't know how much, but not much. So my partial sharpening on carbide, I don't have another piece of drill bit that thick or that size. And I can see there I still got, I don't know what the term is, negative positive break, but the cutter's hitting, but as well the trailing edge isn't far behind it. I'd like to have more clearance than that. But anyway, it all seems to work out pretty good here. Unfortunately, to change my vise, I gotta loosen it up here. I tried to put it in the middle, but I'm gonna pull it up here to where I can get that that bottom part of the vise if it hasn't been cut, and then just come back over here, lock this real good. And I should be good to go here. Back across here, make sure I'm not hitting. Yeah, that bottom side of the vise is low. I'll just dial it in until I get some contact. That might have been 5,000. Yeah, it's still sitting up here in the middle of the part, so I'm getting pretty close to being the same thickness all the way across. Take off a couple thousandths here. Yeah, it's cutting pretty good right there in the bottom. So according to this, it looks like I've got it pretty square with everything. And it's cutting a pretty decent surface across the face of the vise. Of course, this vise is cast iron, so it's easy to cut. Yeah, so bring it on the as far as I can go this way on it. That bottom half of the vise is pretty good. Now just to make sure that I got it right, I'll loosen this up again. And I'm just going to rotate the vise down here to where the cutter will contact the top. That's plenty right there. And I'll just tighten that up again. I found out that everything's got to be really tight in this setup. And get back over here where I'll do some standard milling instead of climb milling. Something must have loosened up. No. So that's taking a lot more out there. You can see it flex now. See, the oil down in there is really moving around. I didn't change anything, but apparently that's way too much when I rotated it. So I'm just back it off a little and see what's happening here. That's approximately half as much as was taken off before. Why it would have changed that much just rotating it, but take another couple thousandths here. About where it was when it was hitting. I was just trying to take too much. And mostly it's taking some down there on the bottom. And it tells me I might not have this thing lined up. Fine milling here. Back the other way. Just taking it off the top, leaving the bottom alone. Anyway, even though it feels good and solid and looks good, apparently when you take a pretty big cut on it, a lot of this stuff starts to flex, which I'm really not surprised, you know, with that Frankenstein setup I got. I can probably back this up. I've got it back as far as I can, but there's really no cure for that. I don't know what the wear is going to be on this, trying to put on that much effort, but like I said, I think I'm going to make some kind of a massive brace in here. Maybe I'll just put another piece of this 3/8 steel across here like this. Put another heavy plate in here. The reason I didn't bore into this is because the slide is here, but I think I can take it up here to the edges, about in here where I got some meat. Put another big piece. Put another piece up here, and then weld this together. So it's still going to be good here on the bottom on the slide, but I'm pretty sure that this is the main problem. I didn't really realize when I was making this how high it was going to be. Anyway, I'll give you another little update on this as I'm coming along. The surface on this is really not bad. It's you see, I need to take a little more off the bottom. My problem is having to rotate this vise around in order to get the top and the bottom. Of course, if I had a longer bit that stuck out farther, I'd be able to get the whole thing in one go. I may wind up doing that, but right now I only got that one bit, and I know it's not sharp enough. I've got another piece of tool steel that I may have to try to grind down to fit that and make another good cutter, and I'm sure that'll be about 90% of my problems. And like I say, this brace on the back, and again, this is probably worst case scenario, trying to fly cut this high. I did put the cutter in a 4-jaw chuck and center it. So anyway, there's Frankenvise, and I think that not exactly what I hoped it would be, but it'll for sure enabled me to mill keyways and some things like that. It's not very big, and I'm not taking such a huge surface cut on, so maybe a day's work doing all that, and I probably got another day's work of fooling around and figuring out some bracing on it. Anyway, I'll update the bracing, and I'll probably post another video when I get this thing done. So that's it for now. Probably got a big laugh out of some of this video, so I hope you enjoyed it.